There's a business where the math guarantees you make money on every single dollar that walks through the door. Not most dollars. Every dollar. It's written into the rules of the game itself. And here's the part that should stop you cold. The people who run that business, the ones who literally own the math, go broke anyway. Regularly. Spectacularly. The most famous casino ever built in Atlantic City cost $2.4 billion. It lasted 2 years. The owners never turned a single profit. So this is the paradox that runs the whole video. The house always wins. And the house keeps losing everything. Both of those are true at the same time. By the end of this, you'll understand exactly why. You'll understand where a casino's money actually comes from, which is not where you think. And you'll understand something stranger than that. You'll understand why you don't need to walk into a casino to already be sitting inside one. Because the 4 levers that make this business print money are running on the device in your pocket right now. Let me show you the machine. Start with the smallest unit. Forget the chandeliers, forget the whales, forget the Bond movies. The whole empire is built on a coin flip that's slightly bent. Imagine a coin that lands heads 52 times out of 100 instead of 50. You'd barely notice the difference watching a single flip. It looks fair, feels fair, but you're not flipping it once. The casino flips it millions of times a day, and it never gets tired, and it never walks away when it's ahead. That tiny bend has a name. It's called the house edge. And everything else in this building, the free drinks, the maze, the lights, the math, exists to keep that coin flipping. Here's why that matters more than it sounds. A bent coin is not a scam. Nobody's cheating. Every individual flip is genuinely random, genuinely fair, and you can absolutely win any single one of them. The bend only reveals itself across the long run. One flip, you might beat it. 1,000 flips, the bend is invisible against the noise. 1 billion flips, the bend is the only thing left standing. So the casino isn't in the business of winning bets. It's in the business of counting flips. And that distinction is the entire empire dressed up in chandeliers. So let's actually open the books. What does it cost to own this money printing machine? Because the entry fee is the first thing nobody tells you. I went through the Nevada gaming filings so you don't have to. And the numbers reframe the entire fantasy of owning a casino. A single mid-sized casino resort runs into the hundreds of millions to build. A flagship on the Las Vegas Strip runs into the billions. This is not a lemonade stand with better lighting. And the license is its own wall. You don't just buy a building. You submit to one of the most invasive background investigations in American business. They look at your finances, your associates, your history, and you can be denied after spending a fortune trying. That's a deliberate moat. The regulators make the door expensive on purpose, because a licensed casino is a license to run the only legal bent coin in the state. Scarcity like that isn't an accident. It's protected. Then there's the part that never makes the brochure. A casino is one of the most expensive buildings per square foot to operate that exists outside of a hospital. The floor runs 24 hours a day, every day, forever. The lights never turn off. The staff never fully goes home. Dealers, security, surveillance, cage, cleaning, food, comps, a small army that clocks in around the clock. The carpet is always lit. And most of that cost is fixed. It doesn't drop when the floor is empty. A dead Tuesday at 4 a.m. costs nearly the same to run as a packed Saturday night, but only one of them brings in the volume. Which means the machine that prints money also burns money at a rate most businesses would never survive. The edge has to out-earn the burn every single day. Forever. Hold that thought. It's the whole trap. Because here's what the guru selling you the dream leaves out. There's a number nobody puts on the screen. Where does the money really come from? Keep that question open. We'll pay it off. Now the engine itself. This is the part everyone thinks they understand and almost nobody has actually run the numbers on. Take roulette. The cleanest example of the bent coin because the math is pure and you can check it yourself. A European wheel has 37 pockets. Numbers 1 through 36, plus a single green 0. When you bet on one number, the casino pays you 35 to 1 if you win. But your real odds of winning are 1 in 37. That gap between what they pay you and what the true odds are is the entire business. Run the arithmetic and it comes out to exactly 2.7%. For every dollar bet on that European will over time, the house keeps 2.7 cents. Now walk over to the American wheel. It looks identical, same felt, same payout 35-1. But there's a second green pocket, a double zero. That one extra pocket doesn't change the payout at all. It just changes the odds. And it drags the house edge from 2.7% up to 5.26%. Same game, same table, nearly double the edge. And most players will sit at the American wheel and never notice they just agreed to lose twice as fast. Here's the part almost nobody catches. The casino doesn't need you to lose every hand. It doesn't even need to beat you tonight. It just needs enough hands. Because 2.7% of one bet is nothing. 2.7% of 100 million bets is a fortune that shows up like clockwork. Let me put a real dollar on it because the abstraction hides the trap. Say you sit down with $100 and you bet it, win some back. Bet again, keep the loop going the way people actually play. Every time $100 of your money cycles through that European wheel, the house expects to keep $2.70 of it. That feels survivable. It is survivable for one lap. But you don't cycle $100 once. Over an evening, an engaged player cycles their money through the machine dozens of times. Cycle it 20 times, and the house's expected take isn't $2.70 anymore. It's closer to $54 of your original 100, quietly gone to the bend. You never felt a single big loss. There was no dramatic moment. The edge just took its cut on every lap until half your money had evaporated into a rounding error you agreed to. That's the difference between gambling and owning the casino. You are exposed to variance, the wild swings, the big win, the bad beat. The house is exposed only to volume. And volume always wins. Now let's leave the fantasy of roulette and look at where the real money sits. Slot machines. This is the actual engine of the modern floor. And here the numbers are not the 5 to 15% you'll read in some blog. Those are ceilings. The real, measured hold is lower and more surgical than that. In Nevada, over the last year, slot machines kept about 7 cents of every dollar wagered. On the Las Vegas Strip specifically, the figure was around 7.85%. Statewide, about 7%. 7 cents. That's it. That's the whole bend on the coin. It feels almost generous. Doesn't it? You're getting more than 93 cents back. And that feeling is the trap. Because you're not wagering a dollar. You're wagering the same dollar over and over. And the house takes its 7 cents on every lap. Here's the detail that exposes the whole design. By Nevada law, a slot machine is allowed to keep up to 25%. The legal ceiling is a quarter of every dollar. The casinos don't use it. They sit at 7. Because a machine that visibly eats a quarter of your money empties the chair. A machine that quietly takes 7 cents keeps you sitting for hours. And they've measured this down to the denomination. The penny slots, the ones that feel harmless, actually carry a higher hold than the high-limit machines. The cheaper the game feels, the more of each dollar it quietly keeps. The illusion of low stakes is the product. That's not generosity. That's optimization. The casino figured out the exact temperature of water that boils the frog slowly enough that the frog stays in the pot. And you are not stupid for staying in the pot. Your brain is wired to notice sharp losses and ignore slow ones. A machine that took 25% would trip that wiring instantly. 7% flies under it. The design isn't beating your intelligence. It's routing around it. So now you understand the edge. Which makes the next fact genuinely disorienting. Because if the whole business is the house edge, if the coin is bent and the volume is enormous, then the gambling floor should be where the money comes from. It isn't. Not even close. And this is the number nobody puts on the screen. This is the open loop paid off right now. On the Las Vegas Strip, in the most recent full fiscal year, gambling was only about 26% of total revenue. 26. The floor with the bent coin is barely a quarter of the business. The other 74%. Rooms, food, beverage, nightclubs, shows, shopping, the parts of the resort that have nothing to do with a card or a chip. And this isn't a fluke year. This was the 27th year in a row that gambling made up less than half of Strip revenue. 27 years. This is not a trend. It's the settled architecture of the business. Go back far enough to the 1980s and gambling was over 60% of the take. The casino used to be the business. Now the casino is the bait. Think about what that migration actually means. For 4 decades, the smartest operators in the world have been quietly, deliberately moving their profit off the gambling floor and into everything around it. They did that on purpose. They followed the money. The floor exists to get you in the building. Once you're inside, the real machine is the $300 room, the $80 dinner, the bottle service, the concert ticket, the $40 resort fee you didn't agree to and can't avoid, which flips the entire mental model. You walk in thinking the danger is the roulette wheel. The wheel is the hook. The hotel is the harpoon. You were watching the wrong hand the whole time. And this is where the standard explanation breaks down. Because most videos will tell you the casino floor is engineered to trap you with no clocks and no windows. And that story is only half true. There's a man named Bill Friedman. He wasn't a critic on the outside. He ran 2 real casinos on the Strip, the Castaways and the Silver Slipper, for 13 years. He turned chronic losers into winners. Then he studied more than 80 Nevada casinos and wrote what became the definitive text on casino design. 13 principles. Low ceilings, maze layouts, gambling equipment right inside the door. And here's the twist inside the twist. Friedman actually pushed back on the popular myth. He said it's a myth that operators stripped out clocks and windows just to manipulate you. His claim was stranger and more honest. He said the serious players demanded it. They wanted to escape reality while they gambled, and a window with sunlight ruins the fantasy. It also creates a practical problem: glare on the cards and the screens. So the maze isn't a cage they built around you. According to the man who designed it, it's a fantasy the customer asked to be sealed inside. The player wanted to lose track of time. The casino just stopped standing in the way. Sit with how unsettling that is. The most effective manipulation isn't the one done to you against your will. It's the one you walked in asking for because it felt like escape. Remember that phrase. We're coming back to it when we talk about your phone. And here's the part that should really break the standard story. Friedman's maze wasn't even the winning formula in the end. A designer named Roger Thomas, working with Steve Wynn, did the exact opposite of everything Friedman preached. High ceilings, natural light, art on the walls, open sight lines, fresh flowers. He treated the gambler like a guest at a luxury hotel instead of a rat in a maze. And it made more money. The Bellagio, the Wynn, the most profitable modern resorts on the Strip broke every single one of Friedman's 13 rules. 2 brilliant experts, opposite philosophies, and the newer one won. Why? Because by the time Thomas won the argument, the money wasn't on the floor anymore. It was in the room upstairs, the restaurant downstairs, the club at midnight. You don't need to trap a whale in a maze. You need to make him comfortable enough to book 3 more nights. The casino floor isn't even where the real business happens anymore. Which brings us to the question you should be asking, the one that's been sitting under this whole video. If the math is this good, and the money is this diversified across the whole resort, how does anyone owning this thing ever go broke? Picture the operator who buys the building. He's read the same numbers you just heard. He knows the edge is guaranteed. He knows volume beats variance. So in his head, he didn't buy a casino. He bought the math. He bought a machine that the laws of probability are contractually obligated to feed. He's read the filings. He knows volume beats variance. What could possibly go wrong? Everything that isn't the math. That's what goes wrong. Because the house edge guarantees revenue. Says nothing about profit. And the gap between those 2 words, revenue and profit, is where every one of these bodies is buried. Revenue is what comes in the door. Profit is what's left after the debt, the interest, the payroll, the building, the depreciation, and the taxes have all taken their bite. The bent coin only controls the first number. It has no say over the second. Let me give you 3 of them. Real buildings, real names, real graves, and watch how the math is innocent in every single one. Number 1. The Trump Taj Mahal, Atlantic City. It opened in 1990 as the largest, most extravagant casino in the world. and it was financed with about $675 million in junk bonds at 14% interest. 14% on $675 million. Do the math on that debt service. The building had to generate enormous, relentless cash just to pay the interest before it earned a single dollar of actual profit. The house edge was working perfectly. Every table, every slot, the bent coin flipped exactly as designed. And it still wasn't enough. Within 1 year, the Taj Mahal couldn't make a bond payment and filed for bankruptcy. The math never lost. The math was never the problem. Every table in that building was quietly winning. The debt was the problem. The operator bought the edge and forgot that the edge doesn't pay 14% interest on $675 million. That's lesson 1. You can own the most reliable money machine in the world and still get killed by what you borrowed to buy it. Leverage doesn't care how good your edge is. Leverage gets paid first. Number 2. The Revel. Also Atlantic City. This one is almost hard to believe, even with the numbers in front of you. It cost $2.4 billion to build. $2.4 billion. It opened in 2012 as a gleaming tower meant to reinvent the city. It was the tallest building in Atlantic City. It went bankrupt twice in 2 years. It never once turned a profit. And in 2015 it was sold at auction for $82 million. Let that number land. $2.4 billion to build. $82 million at auction. That's a loss of about 97% of the construction cost. 97%. And why? The math was fine. The edge was the same edge everyone else had. But Revel made a series of product decisions that starved the volume. No buffet. No players' club. It banned smoking on the floor. Every one of those choices thinned the crowd. And when you thin the crowd, you thin the volume. And when you thin the volume, the guaranteed edge is guaranteed to apply to almost nothing. An edge on a small number is a small number. The house advantage doesn't save you if nobody's at the table. Revel proved you can own the math and still not own a business. That's lesson 2. The edge is a percentage. A percentage of a tiny crowd is a tiny profit. Every product decision that thins the crowd is a decision to shrink the only thing the edge multiplies. Number 3. And this one is my favorite, because the operator told us exactly what he thought was going to happen. On the record, before it fell apart. The Lucky Dragon. Las Vegas. Before it opened in 2016, the developer Andrew Fonfa gave an interview. And he said, and I want you to hear the confidence in this. He said he believed his property per square foot would be the most successful casino ever built in Las Vegas. His entire strategy was to concentrate on one narrow slice of customer. He said, and this is close to a direct quote, that maybe 10% of Americans are gamblers, but the best player in the world was a specific demographic he was going to build the whole building around. He bet everything on one kind of player, one market, one concentrated slice of volume. Same mistake as Revel, just aimed at a different target. The property cost about $127 million to build. About 18 months after Fonfa promised it would be the most successful casino per square foot in the city's history, it was in Chapter 11 bankruptcy. It was later sold for around $36 million. The most successful casino ever built, by the owner's own prediction, lost roughly 70% of its value before it even found the bottom. So here's the pattern across all 3. Trump had too much debt. Revel banned its own crowd. Lucky Dragon bet everything on one narrow slice of that crowd. Different mistakes, same result. And not one of them was killed by the math. The bent coin flipped perfectly in all 3 buildings, right up to the day the doors closed. And here's the number that ties the whole thing together. And it's not a story about failures, it's a story about the winners. In that same recent fiscal year, the entire Las Vegas Strip, every casino combined, in a record-breaking year for gambling revenue, turned a net profit margin of under 1%. Under 1%. Read that again. This is the whole Strip, the survivors, the champions, in a boom year. About $21 billion of total revenue came in the door. And after all the costs, roughly $154 million in actual net income was left. The bent coin printed money on every flip in every building all year long. And after debt and depreciation and payroll and fixed costs and taxes, almost none of it survived to the bottom line. In a record year. That's the answer to the open loop I planted earlier. Why does the house that always wins still go broke? Because the edge guarantees the top line and nothing guarantees the bottom line. Winning every bet and keeping the profit are two completely different games. The casino only rigged the first one. Now, in fairness, let's steelman the other side. Because plenty of casinos don't go broke. Plenty print money for decades. The statewide numbers make that clear. Across all of Nevada, not just the Strip but every casino in the state that survives, the business runs a healthy net margin in the mid-single digits year after year. That's a real, functioning, profitable industry. The model works. It just doesn't work automatically. And that's the honest counter to everything I've said. Owning a casino is not a death sentence. Most of them don't fail. The 3 graves I showed you are the exceptions that make the news precisely because they're exceptions. But look at what the survivors have in common. They didn't over-leverage the way Trump did. They didn't strangle their own volume the way Revel and Lucky Dragon did. They kept the crowd wide, the debt sane, and the doors open to everyone. Boring, durable, profitable. In other words, the survivors succeeded by respecting exactly the thing that killed the others. The gap between the edge and the profit. They managed the second number instead of assuming the first one would take care of it. But there's a longer force acting on all of them, survivors included, and it's the same force we already watched earlier. The floor keeps shrinking. 60% of revenue from gambling in the 80s, 26% today. That's not a blip. That's a 40-year migration of the entire business away from the thing the casino is named after. The word casino is almost vestigial at this point. A name for a building that mostly makes its money doing something else. The house didn't change the game. It just stopped needing you to play it. The modern resort makes its money on your room, your dinner, your Saturday night, and the concert you flew in for. The gambling floor is almost a loss leader that happens to have a bent coin sitting in the middle of it. And that's the quiet genius of it. The floor doesn't even have to be profitable on its own anymore. It just has to be interesting enough to fill the hotel. The bent coin became an amenity like the pool, like the spa, a reason to come, not the reason they get paid. And that migration is the tell. When a business quietly moves its profit away from its signature product over 40 years, it's telling you the signature product was never really the point. The gambling was a mechanism. The experience was the point. Your time inside the building was the point. The bent coin was just the reason you showed up. Which is exactly the bridge to the part of this that actually matters to you. Because here's the thing, you probably don't own a casino. You're probably never going to. You may never even set foot on a real casino floor. So why should any of this change a single thing about your Tuesday? Because the 4 levers we just took apart didn't stay in the building. They got out. And they found you. All right, you understand the machine now. Let's talk about the one you're actually standing inside. Every lever we just took apart is running on you right now, and it never asked you to book a flight to Las Vegas. It just asked for your thumb. Think about the 4 levers that make a casino work. A small guaranteed edge, enormous volume, unlimited time, endless repetition. Hold those 4 in your head. Now think about the last app that kept you scrolling 20 minutes past the point you meant to stop. The feed is a casino floor with no clocks and no windows. And remember what Friedman told us, the most effective version of that isn't done to you against your will. It's the one you open on purpose because it feels like escape. You reach for it the same way the serious gambler reached for the maze. It doesn't take your money at the door. It takes something the casino learned to monetize just as ruthlessly, your time, your attention, and the slow erosion of your intention to leave. You are not irrational for getting pulled in. You're running the same cognitive software every gambler runs. The intermittent reward, the maybe something good on the next pull, is the exact mechanism of the slot machine, ported to your thumb. And here's the piece that should genuinely change how you look at your phone. The casino calculates something called a player's theoretical loss. Based on how you bet, they can predict, mathematically, roughly what you'll lose over time. Then they comp you exactly enough to keep you seated. Your apps do the same thing. Not with chips, with your patterns. The recommendation engine has a model of your behavior precise enough to predict what will keep you engaged, and it serves you exactly enough of it to keep you from closing the tab. You are, in that moment, both the player and the theoretical loss. The house has already run the math on you. It knows statistically what it can extract and exactly how to keep you seated long enough to extract it. And most people never even realize they walked onto the floor, because there was no floor. There was just a screen. And notice the edge is tiny, just like the casinos. No single scroll costs you anything real. No single video is the problem. The bend is invisible on one flip. It only shows up across the 10,000 flips a year you don't count. So what do you actually do with this? Not delete everything. That's a fantasy and you won't, and I'm not going to insult you by pretending you will. The casino wins on volume and time. So you don't fight the edge. You starve it of exactly those two things. Put a clock and a window back into your own floor. A visible timer on the app. A hard stop. Anything that reintroduces the sense of time the design spent millions to remove. The single thing Friedman's casino took away is the single thing that gets you out. Because the guaranteed edge only compounds against you if you supply the volume. The math is real. The house advantage is real. But it applies to nothing if you're not at the table. So let's go back to the paradox we opened with. The house always wins, and the house keeps going broke. Now you know how both are true. The edge is guaranteed. The profit is not. Trump proved debt kills the winner. Revel and Lucky Dragon proved that starving your volume kills the winner. The math was innocent in every single case. And the deeper lesson isn't about casinos at all. It's that a small, guaranteed edge, applied to enormous volume over unlimited time, is one of the most powerful forces in the world. It built the strip. It broke the men who bet against it. And it does not care which side of the table you're sitting on. The casino learned to point that force at you decades ago. The apps in your pocket learned it more recently and faster. Same 4 levers. Same bent coin. Different currency. And here's the part worth keeping. That force is neutral. The exact same math that empties the gambler over 10,000 pulls can fill an investor over 10,000 days. A tiny edge, enormous volume, unlimited time, that's also the definition of compounding. The house isn't the only one who gets to own an edge. The only question that's ever mattered is which chair you're in. Are you the one holding the edge, or the one feeding it? You don't need to gamble to be inside the machine. You just need to keep supplying the volume without ever once watching the clock. So watch the clock. Own an edge instead of feeding one. And remember the one line that survives this entire video. The house always wins. Just make sure you're not the player it was built for.